Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Jenny. I'm from JennyCardDesigns. Thanks so much for stopping by to spend some time with me here today. My YouTube channel contains content that is intended to share paper crafting, tutorials, and inspiration with all of you. I hope that you enjoy. So for today's video is essentially part 2 of the previous video I had done where I was giving away these paper packs. Okay, coming up on screen, the winners of the giveaway from the previous video are listed here. If you see your name here on the screen, please send me an email to JennyCardDesigns@gmail.com and tell me that you are the winner of the giveaway. So congratulations to all of the winners, and there'll be another giveaway at the end of this video. For today's video, I'm going to show you how to cut down a 12 by 12 paper pack for slimline cards. So there are 2 ways that you can do this. In the first way, if you like to use the 4 by 9 measurement for your slimline cards, then you can cut your paper pack up and get 3 panels of 4 by 9, 1 panel of 3 by 8, and then 1 little scrap left over that is 3 by 4. Okay, so you essentially get 5 pieces. You can make up to 5 cards with this or more depending on how you use it and cut it apart. So the second option that we have is to cut 4 panels that measure 3 by 8 and 1 panel that measures 4 by 9, and then you'll have left over a panel that measures 4 by 3. So whichever way you cut it, either way, you're always going to end up with that little scrap that's 4 by 3. Now, you can use this particular scrap for A2 size cards. If I take my other pattern paper, I've got 1 piece of 4 by 9, 1 piece of 3 by 8, and then this little 4 by 3 piece in the middle, and it just kind of gives you a little bit of a separated look. I think that's kind of cool. All right. So I have this paper pack that I picked up at Michael's. It was a clearance item on sale for $4.97. So what I'm going to do is tear out each of these sheets one by one out of the paper pack, and then I'm going to sort through it, and I'm going to put all of the cut aparts in one pile and all of the solid patterns in another pile. And I will take the cut aparts and set those aside, and we're going to go into those later on in this video today. And let's start cutting up that 12 by 12. So I particularly like the 3 by 8 size panels. I prefer that. But again, you can do whatever way you like. This particular pattern paper has a branding strip on it. For this particular paper pack, it's colored and it's usable. So we're going to trim it off and keep it. So I'm going to cut down this panel by first cutting off that little colored strip. And then I will cut it down to 8 inches. And I will take this piece and set that aside, and then I'm going to spin this around, and on the 12-inch side I'm going to start cutting at 3-inch increments. So my first cut will be 9, my next one will be 6, and then the final one will be 3. And then I will take this panel that's left over from the first cut, and across the 12-inch side I'm going to cut that at 9 inches. And then we end up with 1 panel that's 9 by 4, 1 panel that's 3 by 4, and 4 panels that are 3 by 8. So I'm going to go ahead and do this for all of these cardstocks. I'm going to run through this entire pack of pattern paper and cut them all up. First, cutting off that little colored strip. Once again, cutting at 8 inches, spinning it around, cutting at 3-inch increments at 9, 6, and 3, and then cutting up that larger strip across the 12-inch side at 9 inches, and then we have all of our patterns cut out. And I'm just going to stack these all up to the side. So once we're done, we have a pile of these leftover strips, and we're going to use some of those later on in this video. So I'm going to keep this and set it aside. And now let's take a look at what we've got here. Now I have a stack of card panels that measure 3 by 8, a stack not as big, but still a stack of card panels that measure 9 by 4, and then a stack of 3 by 4 panels. So for the 3x8 panels, I'm going to separate those. I'm going to put those into packages just as I had done in my previous video. So I'm going to separate all this cardstock into different piles. I'm leaving all of the 9x4 panels in one package, all of the 3x4 panels in one package, and then I'll just run through all of these lovely patterns and get 4 stacks of 3x8 panels. And I'll just quickly run through them so that you can kind of see all of the patterns that are in this pack, for those of you who are interested. And also, I will be giving away a couple of these packs too at the end of this video. So stick with me to the end of this video and see how you can be entered in to win. I'm going to put all of my stacks of paper in the clear plastic bags, just as I had done in my previous video. And the packaging that I have is a little bit larger, so I just fold it over and tape it together. And it looks very nice and neat and professional looking. And I do that for all of my packages, including the little 3x4 panels, just to keep them all clean and dust-free and stacked up and nice and neat. And then for the large 4x9 panels, I use these Avery Elle stamp pockets. These are the stamp pockets that I use for my large 6x8 stamp sets. So this fits in here perfectly. And then I can store it with my other paper in a bin standing up, and I can just flip through and be able to grab what I need very quickly, and it's stored nice and neat. Okay. All right, let's move along to the next part of this video. I'm going to show you how I cut apart those large 12x12 patterns from my previous video. I've got the big patterns and the small cut aparts and things that I had removed from the paper pack. So I'm just going to cut them up and show you a few examples of how I would use these on cards. So I'm just going to start with this large image, and I'm going to cut apart some of the things out of this, keeping in mind that I want to use it for a card front. So I'm just sort of going to cut down the image of those leaves on the right hand side of that page, just to where I will cut off the words, and it will not be like weird where there's like a half of a missing word or something. So these two panels, we end up getting 2 pieces that measure 3x6 for a card front. So that's not too bad. We didn't do too bad there. So we have 2 nice sized panels, and they have some really pretty designs on them. And now this one here, like, I had to get rid of the letters on this and decided to go ahead and fussy cut out the image, as much of it as I wanted anyways. I cut around that letter K, and I didn't like that leaf, so I ended up cutting that right off, and I ended up with this beautiful floral arrangement. So I really like that, and it fits nicely on the front of this 5x7 card. So that's what I would do with this particular pattern, and the rest I would just scrap. So that ends up being a nice focal image for the front of your card. And then for these panels, this can go right in the front of your card with the sentiment over top. Not too distracting, but enough of a design to be interesting. And then I can also make some nice size tags with these as well. So I'll just clip off one of the corners and then use the corner that I clipped off as a guide so that we get the exact same measurement on the opposite side. And that's how I sometimes like to make tags very quickly, so that they're even and don't look like one side is larger than the other or lopsided or anything. So I'll just punch a hole in that, and then I will save this for a project when I need it. Okay, moving along to the next pattern, I'm going to cut apart these strips, and I'm going to use my Cricut trimmer for this particular pattern paper because I like the ability to get precise cuts. And when I'm cutting up these strips, I don't want the patterns to show. I want to get it cut right on. So I can line this up to the trimmer guide and drop my blade right on top and know that I'm going to get it cut out properly, if that makes any sense. So these are great for slimline cards to decorate your envelopes or the insides of your cards, and we'll get into that more later. And then I have these cut aparts. So I do the same thing. I just line them up with my Cricut trimmer and I cut apart all the pieces, and then I can kind of sort through them and decide what I want to use where. So a couple of these, there's some nice journaling cards in here. some great little sentiments, little labels and things like that, some inspiring card fronts. And so for these particular things, I would probably put most of these inside of a journal. For example, is my winter journal. I've got this handmade journal that I've been working on. It's sort of been my passion lately. I've been really having fun creating these little books, and they're just flip throughs, and I just like using my scraps and bits and pieces that I have and sort of collaging things and gluing them down. I haven't been recording this process. I've just been enjoying making them. So I have these tags in the top that I have yet to decorate. That's what I would use here. I would probably glue something down. Obviously, I wouldn't use the jungle pattern for this because it doesn't match my winter journal. But you can see here I've got some pages all filled out and some need a little bit of decorating still. But I really like this particular journaling card, and I want to incorporate it into my winter journal because I think it matches nicely. It's got that blue and I'm looking for a spot to let it live in. So I decide that this page is empty and needs a little bit of something. So that's where it's going to go. But I'm going to do that on my own time. If you're interested in how to make this journal or this flip through book, leave me a comment in the description down below and I can create a video sharing how I created this book. Okay, so let's move along here. Next, I'm going to start cutting apart some of the purple floral from that pattern paper pack that I have. I've got some cut apart cards and some of those strips as well. And I'm going to cut them up and make a couple of cards for you. I'm going to start with the cut aparts, and I'm going to cut off that colored strip off the top of the pattern paper. And I'll use my Cricut blade again. I find it's easier instead of my guillotine trimmer so that I can see where to drop the little blade down into the pattern paper so that I get a perfect cut. So all of these little pieces, I get some cute little tags and card fronts, and I can make a whole bunch of different things with these. These are great for journals and things as well. So I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out one of the strips, the same as I had done with the jungle pattern. Just go ahead and slice them and cut off all of those little strips, and we'll use those on cards. So I've got all of my strips cut up and my little cut aparts set to the side. And first I'm going to start with an envelope. I have a pre-made slimline envelope, and I'm going to take one of these strips just to dress it up a little bit and decorate it. So this little strip has got some gold butterflies, and I'm going to glue that right to the front of my envelope. And then I'll take my scissors and cut off the excess. And then I decided that I wanted to carry that pattern over to the flap of the envelope. So I just adhered it down to the flap to make a continuous pattern, but then it's not glued over top of the crease of the closing flap of the envelope, so there's no stress on the paper when we open and close it. So that looks good, and I trim off the excess, and that's done. So just a fun way to make the envelope stepped up a little bit, and you can make it coordinate with your card, and so I like the way that looks. Alright, so I'm going to grab a piece of heavyweight cardstock. Across the 11-inch side, I'm going to cut it at 7 inches. So this is how I create my slimline cards, and I'm going to use that extra scrap for stamping and things on my card. So I'll pull in my scoreboard, and across the 7-inch side, I'm going to score this piece of cardstock at 3.5 inches. This will give me a slimline card base that's 3.5 inches by 8.5 inches. I'm going to use my bone folder to crease the fold on here. Okay, and that looks good. This is my favorite size of slimline card. Okay, so I'm going to pull in the patterns that I have cut up and decide on which pattern that I want to use for this card. And I love all of these. They're so pretty, and the wood backgrounds and stuff. It's very versatile. So you get some masculine looking backgrounds in this package too. Okay, so I chose this purple floral. I think these are purple roses. And I also decided to use one of these little strips as well. I took one of the solid color strips that came off the top of the papers, and I tried to pick out one that matched my purple flowers nicely. So I went with a deep purple, and I'm going to adhere that on the inside of my card. So we get these decorative little finishing touches, and this is normally something that we just throw away. And then it just gives us like a stepped up, more professional looking card, and less waste as well. So I use my bone folder to press that into the adhesive, and then use my scissors to cut off any of the excess. And then we'll continue focusing on the front of this card. So far so good. This is simple. It's come along quite quickly. Nothing much left to do but put a sentiment on here. So I decided to stamp the sentiment, many thanks for all you do. This is the JennyCardDesigns Grand Greetings stamp set. It's just a little mini set, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was an incentive set at one point in time, a few years ago. So I'm going to stamp this using VersaFine Onyx Black ink. I like this ink because it gives me a nice dark impression. So I'm going to stamp this on my leftover scrap of cardstock. And I'm using a comfort block for this as well. I like these blocks. They have like rounded edges, so they're nice and lightweight and don't kind of hurt your fingers when you press on them. Okay, so I'll get this all trimmed out, and I decided to round the corners on this sentiment. I thought it was a softer look instead of the harsh corners. So I'm happy with that. I like the way that looks, and I decided to take one of those strips that has like scripty gold lettering on it with the purple background. So I thought I could use this as sort of a grounding strip for my sentiment, and I'll adhere that across the front of my card. And I like the way that looks. I'm going to use my bone folder to press everything in, cut off any of the excess, and then I'm going to take my sentiment and adhere that to the front of the card. So you could continue stepping this up a little bit. You could add some embellishments or sequins or gems and make it a little bit prettier. I just like this. Nice and simple. Nothing too complicated. It was easy to make, and I used leftover scraps pretty much, except for that background and the little cut apart strip. So here we go. This card's complete. I'm happy with the way it turns out. And then we've got this beautiful purple shimmery envelope with some butterflies. Oh, I also cut out a little finger notch using my little, I think it's like a 5/8 inch circle punch. And I cut out a little finger notch so it makes it easier for me to grab my card in and out of my envelope. Here we go. That's it. All right. So moving along to the next card. This is the easiest card you'll ever make in your life. I took a card base that was already cut and scored, 5x7. It's sitting in my drawer. It's just a craft heavy base weight cardstock. And I took some craft foam, and this cut apart from that package. It's got this beautiful white sort of creamy looking rose on it. Very vintage looking. I think it was really pretty. So I'm going to adhere some craft foam to the back of this, and I also used an alcohol marker to color in the sides of the craft foam so that it gives us a shadow look instead of an obvious piece of white foam behind. So I think that looks pretty. And I glued that to the front of my card, and that's it for that card. And then I grabbed this JennyCardDesigns stamp set. I think this is called Wild Roses or something like that. I forgot the name of it, but it'll be linked in the description box down below if you're interested in any of the products that I used here today. So I used my Versamark ink to stamp this sentiment and some Hero Arts Platinum embossing powder. So I've got my heat gun warming up off to the side, and I bring it to my paper when it's really, really hot. And I only hold it there for a second or two and then pull it away. Because I've got craft foam and tape on this already, I don't want to warp anything. And it was a really, really pretty card. So that is it. I'm not going to do anything else to this card. I think it's very elegant and classy. Okay, all right, let's move along and make one more card. I've got the 3x4 little pieces that we cut apart earlier, and I'm going to use one of those as a grounding layer for a focal image on my card. I'm also going to show you this little drawer I've got that sits on my desk. I've got it labeled bits and pieces, and inside of it I've got already made flowers and things, that extras that I had cut up or colored or stamped when I mass produced things, and then if I didn't use them, I stuck them in the drawer. So for today, I dug through there and I found a couple of pieces that I thought we could make a simple happy birthday card. So I glued that little strip of paper. This is a 3x4 inch paper. I didn't have to do any extra cutting or anything. And I glued that right to an A2 size card base, which is 4¼ by 5½. I pulled out a sentiment and a flower and a leaf from my little bits and pieces box and glued those to the front of my card. And that was it. That was literally a 10-second card. I have never made a card so fast in all of my life. Okay, so that's 3 ideas to use up some of those pattern papers and some of the 12x12 sheets as well. I gave you a few ideas there for those full scrapbook layouts, and then chopping up your 12x12 paper packs. So I hope that you've enjoyed this little series. I've had a lot of fun chopping up my paper pads, and I'm going to continue to do so. As I mentioned, I'm going to be giving away a couple of the slimline packs that I've created. So all you have to do to be entered into the giveaway is, number 1, be a subscriber to my YouTube channel, and number 2, like the video, and number 3, leave a comment in the description box down below telling me, I don't know, anything. Tell me hi. Tell me you want to win. Tell me that you love to make cards. Tell me that you're addicted to paper like me and that you want more paper. And maybe I'll give you some. So the whole idea behind this video series is to use what you have. Shop in your own craft room. Take a look at some of the stamps that you haven't used before and pull them out and use them. Or some of the cardstock you haven't used before. I hope that this inspires you to take another look around your craft room. So thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. I appreciate all of the support. Coming up on screen are a few videos I think you may enjoy. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!